Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Be Extraordinary podcast. I'm with my main men, Rod Erb and Taylor Young, and the man, the myth, the legend. Today we have a special guest, Mr. Stephen Aumock. Thank you so much for being here, sir.
Thank you, buddy.
It's a thrill to be with you guys. I love what you're doing with your business. I love hanging out with you, and really excited to do this podcast with you.
Man, you guys, if you're driving in your car, if you're listening at work, anywhere you are, you're going to want to strap in, because when it comes to a guy that is absolutely a pinnacle professional in what he does, and we'll get into that, a master, for real, a master, Mr. Stephen Aumock is one of those guys. So I'm super pumped to be here. Last time we were together, I was getting drilled on how to miss the stick on the driving range, right?
That's right.
So for those that don't know, Mr. Stephen Aumock is the guy when it comes to a master instructor in the golf game. And even to test his skills, we just put me on the driving range, and within two balls, was it 2 balls? I think I missed the first one completely. And the second one, I absolutely hit it high right to left, which if you know my golf game, you'll know that is pretty much like a unicorn. It doesn't happen. So it's the real deal, man. So thanks so much for being here. We're super stoked. And not only are you an awesome professional and we get a chance to spend this time, but, just always such a good time when we get together, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love hanging out with you guys. Really eager to get going.
I'm really upset that I missed that golf outing as well. I was in Dallas.
Got to go to Dallas.
You got to go to Dallas. That's kind of the funny mantra, right, Steve? I've been, Steve and I, our friendship goes 25 years, man. I was figuring that out. We were talking about that last night at dinner. 25 years. So I've had a front row seat to your career, and that's what's super, super special. Humbling. It's an honor to have you here, man, because I've been a fan from a distance. I've been a fan, as you know, rooting you on, but to see what you've done, to know where you've come from, and to see what you've built, nothing but respect, man. As we're on our journey and we're getting after it. Privately, to me, you've been a mentor just based on your discipline alone, and that's one of the things I'm excited to talk about. But I want to jump in real quick before we kind of turn you loose on your story, Steve. You heard Brett allude to the fact that Stephen is a master PGA instructor. So the PGA of America has a designation, is the highest designation for a PGA professional, and that is a PGA master professional. And that's a short list of people, about 370 people.
In the world.
In the world, right? Well, the PGA of America, right? So PGA of America designation, 370 in America.
Got it. Well,
there's even a smaller designation of those that have said, of all the different disciplines in the game of golf, I'm going to focus on instruction. Stephen has earned the highest honor that the PGA of America bestows on instructors, and he is a master instructor. And I don't even know the number of that, Steve. A couple hundred of those in the world. I mean,
yeah,
it's less than.
I'm not exactly sure the exact number, but yeah.
But the curriculum to achieve that, aside from having hours on the books and lessons on the books and philosophies on the books and being printed and having different stories written and articles written, he's done all of that. But it's just been such a laser focus. I'm going to get into that. So he's, as I said, master PGA instructor. He's taught in 13 different countries. Wow. He's taught in every major golf championship that there is. That's the Masters, that's the PGA, that's the U.S. Open, and that's the British Open. I was with you at a couple of those. Mm-hmm. Those were some fun times. Stephen is TPI and AimPoint certified. So if you're a golfer out there and you're listening, TPI and AimPoint, they're both crazy good, impressive designations. So if you don't know what those are, look it up, because it just adds credibility to who this man is, and you'll get into that in a bit. He's worked with numerous professionals on the PGA Tour, the European PGA Tour. I've seen you front row in those settings and just see how you carry yourself. But I think on the day-to-day, you enjoy seeing. Everybody would think, if I'm an instructor, I want to go to the mountaintop and teach a PGA Tour player, an LPGA Tour player. But to watch Steve on the day-to-day and watch him with just the average country clubber and watch them improve and just see what he puts in and then see what they get out, it's really a cool thing. And I know you enjoy that as well, and you're super, super successful with that. I know you kind of key in on juniors, right? Junior golfers that are extremely talented. I know that's a big focus. You've been on the cover of Golf Illustrated. You sit on the advisory board for FlightScope. You're sponsored by PXG. You're sponsored by Adidas. You are currently the director of instruction at Glen Eagles Golf and Country Club in Dallas, Texas, for 20 years. again, I got a front row seat to all of that, and those were some special times for us. So I'm looking forward to everybody learned about that. I mean, I can go on and on. You've won North Texas PGA Teacher of the Year numerous times, the Horton Smith Award, the Bill Straussbaugh Award. You've served on the Teaching and Coaching Committee for 10 years, chairman for 6 years, in the North Texas PGA Board of Directors. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Your resume, your pedigree is just, if anybody doubts credibility after what I just read, you probably should stop listening, because if you're a golfer and you understand what any of that stuff means, you want to lock in. But dude, I'm just absolutely pumped you're here, and to be a guest on this podcast, I know we're all honored. So what I'd love you to do, because we can have some really cool dialogue of how your career has gone, but I think it's really cool for the listener to kind of understand where you came from, when these intentions were set. You didn't just wake up 20 years ago and say, I think I want to teach golf. So I think that'd be a fun place to start, man. But welcome, and thanks for being here.
Well, thanks, Rod. I appreciate all those comments, and it's flattering for you to go through some of that. And when you stay committed to a career, and you look back over 20, 30 years I've been teaching golf, there's enough time to start acquiring some of these accolades and things. And it's a little humbling, to look back on some of that. But really, it all started for me back in Detroit, Michigan, Rochester, Michigan, where I was born and raised. And I don't know if it was because of the long off seasons that we had, but I always had this burning passion for golf. I mean, it was crazy how much I was into golf as a kid. And I used to think as a kid, when I get older, will I lose this drive or passion for golf? And I truthfully never had. I've never lost it. And even yesterday when we were playing, I asked you, because it was the first time I've been to the golf course, I said, this is the 17th, right, that we're coming up to? Because we didn't have a scorecard going. We were just playing kind of for fun. And so I didn't really know if it was the 17th.
I knew exactly where you stood. I was going to whip your ass.
That's right. So, and you said, yeah, it's the 17th. And I got this pit in my stomach, this sad feeling like, oh man, I mean, there's only one more hole left. I get that, usually on the back nine, I just love playing so much and love the game of golf. And so that's fueled me over the years. And I think it all goes back to just growing up in Detroit and not being able to play for half the year, and you get that burning desire. And so I've just kind of rolled with it. And I feel like I didn't even really choose this path. It more chose me, so to speak. And so I really look forward every day I can go to the golf course and grind or help someone else grind. And in my desire to become a good player myself, I really went down the rabbit hole of golf instruction and understanding the game and the biomechanics of golf. And so my goal when I was younger was to see if I could, play golf for a living. And obviously I wasn't able to do that. And so I decided to take that knowledge and try to share it with others. And it's been a fun journey so far. I kind of feel like I'm just warming up. It's a little surreal because I'm after you learn some things, you realize that you don't really know as much as you might think you know. And so it kind of creates a situation where I want to continue to learn as much as I can and learn a lot more, because you realize, man, there's just so much out there. Like I was at a clinic, just a putting clinic, 2 days ago, 3 hours on green reading. It's just such a small section of the game of golf, but so important. And I'm listening to Mark Sweeney and some of the other guys that are experts in green reading. Oh, wow. And I'm AimPoint certified, right? So I understand a little bit about green reading. But these guys, the depth of knowledge just in this one narrow silo of golf was so impressive. And it reminded me that I've got a lot, a long way to go, a lot to learn. But it's been a fun ride. And my passion for golf has been so great that a funny story I'll share with you guys. When I was 15 years old, I was on spring break. All my friends went down to Daytona Beach to party, and I was like, no, I'm not down with that. I'm going to go see if I can visit Mr. Hogan. And my friends were like, what are you talking about? Visit Mr. Hogan? I said, yeah, I want to go because a friend of mine had just moved to Arlington from Detroit, and I'm going to go visit my buddy. Zubby, and I'm going to see if I can meet Mr. Hogan. And that was my plan. So I went down there, and John Zubkis drove me over to Shady Oaks, where Ben Hogan was.
Private golf club.
Yeah, yep.
Very private golf club.
Beautiful private club in Fort Worth. And so he drove me over there, and I walked into the golf shop, and I wasn't, dressed really nicely or anything. I wasn't, in tore-up jeans or anything, but it wasn't like I was, wearing a tie. And so I go into the golf shop, and the pro behind the counter said, Can I help you? I said, yeah, I'm here to meet Mr. Hogan. And he looked at me kind of funny, like, do you have an appointment or something? There's something I don't know about? I said, no, I don't have an appointment. I came down, from Detroit, and my name's Stephen, and I wanted to, meet Mr. Hogan. And he's like, well, he's a very private man, and I don't think, you're going to be able to do that today. I'm sorry about that. And I was like, well, is there any way I can just, maybe see him? And he's like, dude, we can't really do that. We're talking about Mr. Hogan. I was like, well, I came down from Detroit. I'd really like to see him. And he's like, all right, today's your lucky day. Come with me. And he takes me and walks me upstairs to the men's grill where Mr. Hogan was having lunch. And he kind of showed me around a little bit and casually tried to, show me where Mr. Hogan was so I could see him. And I finally got a chance to see Mr. Hogan, which was really exciting. And I didn't get a chance to say anything to him because he's across the room, and, you can't really, what are you going to do, walk up and, you're not going to do that. So I went back down into the golf shop, and my heart was racing. I couldn't believe I just saw my idol, my childhood idol. And he said, well, that was, you did what you needed to do, so have a great day, buddy. And I was like, man, he's going to be coming down through here, isn't he? Can I just hang out for a little bit? And he's like, yeah, but he goes up there and he plays pinochle after lunch, and it might be an hour and a half. And I'm like, and your point is what? Right. I'm waiting. I'll wait right here. He's like, okay, go over there and wait by the putters, So I go over by the putters, and I'm there for at least an hour. Wow. And sure enough, Mr. Hogan comes walking down, and he's got a towel in his hand, and it's like 90 degrees out, and he's wearing a wool cardigan. I'll never forget. And there's a drinking fountain on the way, and he takes the towel and he wets part of the towel, the end of the towel, for his irons. And he walks through the golf shop, and I get real close to him, and I said, hello, Mr. Hogan. And everyone knows, everyone thinks that Mr. Hogan's this grumpy old man and was real sour, And his face just lit up, and he's like, hello, Sonny, how you doing today? Like with a lot of energy. And it was really a cool connection. It was obviously very brief, but it made an impact on me. Wow. And so Mr. Hogan walked through the golf shop, gets in a cart, and drives off. And I think that the assistant pro that was there at the time could see how important it was for me. And he's like, all right, dude, today's your lucky day. Hop in the cart. I'm like, what? He said, yeah, get in the golf cart. We're going to go watch Hogan practice.
No.
So we drive out to the Little Nine, and we hide out in the mesquite trees. And there's Hogan, and he's about to this is a 75-year-old man at the time. He's about to start practicing. He has his shag bag. He pours his shag bag out, rolls a ball onto a lie, and he's about to rip this iron off this tight Texas turf. And he stops for a second, and he takes some grass and kind of picks up some grass and throws it in the air. Doesn't like what the wind is doing. Takes all his golf balls, puts them back into the shag bag, and goes to the other side of the fairway so he gets the proper wind direction for his practice. Wow. So even at that age, he is totally committed to excellence because just the wind alone would make him alter where he's hitting balls from. So I've got a camera with me that I brought just in case that we had a situation like that. And I was so captured by the moment that I forgot to even take a picture. And it was obviously a really awesome experience for me. And Mr. Hogan and I sort of became, quote unquote, pen pals after that because I wrote him and he wrote me back a couple times. And it was really a neat deal for a young man. And I'll never forget it.
Every time I hear that story, I get goosebumps.
I've never heard that story. That's amazing.
And if you know Steve, Steve's always, talking about, planes and angles and all this. And I've heard of a rendition of the story where you drove behind him just as that thing's coming down, on plane or whatever, in the Hogan way. And you're just like, man, I had a camera. I didn't take a photo.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Wow. I bet that made a huge impact.
Sure did.
I mean,
how about the part where the wind direction, right? You talk about you probably remember that so vividly, and that may have affected probably the way you approach the details. And
no
for
doubt.
somebody like that at 75, where it seemingly doesn't matter anymore, that it still matters to him because he's committed to excellence, as you said. That's insane.
How many years ago was that?
Well, I was 15 and I'm 51, so 30 some years, 35 years.
Wow.
To just blindly and almost innocently just say, man, I'm going to go to Fort Worth. I'm going to meet Mr. Hogan.
Right.
When all for an hour.
When all your buddies are going on spring break.
And I can just picture Zubby like, Steve saying, Zub, you going to come in? Zubby's like, no, I'm not going to come in. Like, you're not going to meet him. Like, I'll wait here. I could just picture Steve come back. Dude, I met him. I saw him. I watched him hit balls.
Exactly. You nailed it.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so that's just one of the, many fortuitous things that has happened to me over the years. But I kind of feel like maybe there's something going on that we don't really know about, so to speak. Like if you just lock into your desires, and really focus on just your passion, a lot of stuff like that starts to unfold. That there's no way you couldn't have even paid for that, right? There wouldn't be an amount of money that, it just.
Right.
So I feel like if you really stay true to yourself and stay true to the things that you are passionate about, I mean, even though it might not feel like it makes sense financially, maybe at the offset, certain things will start to unfold where it makes it so worth it. Obviously, to be able to stay in a field that I'm passionate about, I feel super fortunate. But to be able to be in a position where I can earn a living and be somewhat successful, it's just a cool feeling. Because it kind of has even though you're working really hard and you're focused every day on getting better and you're reading, it feels like it's effortless because I would be doing this anyway. Mm-hmm. Like if I was working, let's say a job where I was whatever, an accountant or whatever, any normal job.
Insurance agent,
there you go. I would be on my breaks or, on my off the weekends, whatever, it'd be all about golf. And so for me, it was like, well, why not just go with golf? And it's worked out, pretty well so far. Hopefully, it'll get better as we go.
Man,
I'm pretty confident. Will, I mean, every time we talk, I mean, we may have some time pass between our conversations, but every time we talk, it's like there's never any sort of stagnation with you, right? I mean, whether I follow you on social or I see something that's going on, or we share a call or we exchange text. I mean, I know that there's always a push that you're making to improve, to grow, to gain credibility, to gain eyes. I mean, I just think I used to say back in the day that, he's the best kept secret. You're the best kept secret in golf instruction. I still feel that way. I still feel enough people that are pursuing golf don't know about you. And if they did, they would have a far different journey. I still believe that so strongly. But it's kind of interesting. I hear that story about Hogan, right? And I remember early on in your actual career, after college and everything, Steve and I become roommates, and I remember that letter. I remember seeing the letters of Ben Hogan.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, who is this guy? Like, this is kind of weird, right? And he would smile like, I mean, I am a little weird, and I'm like, I don't know necessarily where this guy sits, and clearly we've become, one of my lifelong best friends, but I just remember those days when those little simple pursuits of a desire with such conviction and such just full on burning desire. I mean, I knew then that you were a different dude. I knew then you were wired different than I was at the time, with skills that I just hadn't yet learned. And I just think that's super, it's just cool to hear the stories from before your career and then to see where it's gotten to now. So,
yeah.
Did I hear? So you obviously had a career as a golfer. Did I hear you played at Alabama?
Yeah, I did play at University of Alabama. I didn't play particularly well, but I did play. I was on the roster, pretty much rode the pine for most of my stint there. But that's kind of a little different story. I actually accepted a golf scholarship to Oakland University in my hometown in Rochester, Michigan. And the very first college tournament I ever played in, as a true freshman, I won it.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, this is terrible. I mean, I got to get the hell out of here, right? Because if I knew how badly I sucked at the time, and so if I was winning a tournament, I needed to be around other golfers.
So you really felt that way then? You're like,
Absolutely.
you won it, and you're like, are you kidding me? Something's wrong.
Absolutely. Well, I knew because I wasn't any good, and so I decided that if I was going to play for a living, I would need to be able to at least compete at the highest level in college. That was my mentality. So I said, well, I'm going to go to University of Alabama and try to play golf there. So I reached out to the coach, and he discouraged me from coming to Alabama. He said, you're not good enough to play for us. You don't have the resume. You don't have the tournament scores. You shouldn't be coming down here. And I said, well, I'm coming. And because the reason I felt confident that I could go down there is because he did say when I talked to him that there was a walk-on qualifying, and that they took one person a year, one kid a year, one junior a year onto the team from walk-on. And there's usually like 100 or so people that show up to try to walk on. It's a kind of a big deal back then. And so I was like one of those things where, so you're saying there's a chance, right? And so I went down there, and sure enough, I won this damn walk-on qualifier. And next thing I knew, I was on the team at University of Alabama, and it was a lot of fun. I learned a tremendous amount. But the cool thing about it for me was after college, because it was pretty obvious I wasn't going to be able to play for a living, I never really developed the skills to do it. And maybe I got in my own way because I was so focused on the technique of it and learning the ins and outs of the swing and the X's and O's of the game, maybe in a sense that got in my way of just freeing it up and just playing golf, which is a whole other deal. But it turned out really well for me because I ended up coaching some of the guys that were on the team when they turned professional. And so that's where I was able to travel the world with my dear friend Morten Olander from Sweden. He played on the European Tour for a decade. And I traveled, to 13, 15 different countries and coached him and met a lot of really interesting people. And that was a phenomenal experience for me, just to be able to see the world. And that's another one of those things where if you just stay kind of committed to what you're passionate about, all these things unfold. And that was one of them. I mean, how could you predict that I would get paid to travel to all these exotic locales, the most beautiful golf courses in the world, the most important golf tournaments in the world, and get paid to do it? I mean, it's like...
You're in your 20s at the time? I mean,
yeah,
20s,
maybe right around
30s.
30. Yeah, 20, yeah.
You had to have no fun on those trips.
Yeah, we squeaked out just a little here and there. Yeah, it was pretty intense. It was pretty intense.
I think it's fascinating that you won the tournament and you're like, nah, man, this can't be it. And I think about pursuing your passion, but also like, you're like, hey man, I got to get in a bigger pool. Like I gotta get a little bit more uncomfortable. That's just the fact that you sought that out. Did you have a mentor at the time or a teacher at the time that recommended that, or was that just an intuition thing where you're just like, hey, it's just saying right?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've had incredible mentoring, throughout my life, which has obviously made a huge difference for me. My father and mother were incredible. I've got a dear friend, Ian Harris, that's been a real strong mentor for me. He was a world-class tennis player and the only person to ever play in the U.S. Open in tennis and the U.S. Open in golf. That's pretty remarkable the way I see it. And so he's mentored me quite a bit. And other mentors along the way, Mike Byland, Jim Vaughn. So that's helped a lot. And but I don't think they really had any specific input on that one incident. But just the overall fact that I had a support group like that, it's helped me quite a bit along the way.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, right? Like if the ego would tell you to stay in the small pool and dominate, right?
Yeah.
But the wiser would say, no, you need to get beat up a little bit and play in the big pool.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, that's good thoughts. So, and can I digress for a second? Because for like someone who's listening that I'm just getting into golf because I know this guy, right? So it's such a fun game. But as far as you say, you may have gotten in your way as far as the golf swing, the X's and O's, the technique, all that, and then just playing golf. You know, I look at, he tells that all the time. It's like, just stop thinking about it. Just playing golf is very different than, you know, working on the swing or the technique of the game or all that stuff.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
Would you kind of expand on that a little bit of what that means?
Yeah. So, you know, there's different levels of learning, right? You have when you're unconsciously incompetent, and then you're consciously incompetent, right? And then you're consciously competent, and then hopefully you progress to that final stage where you're unconsciously competent, where you're tying your shoelaces and you're not even thinking about it. You don't even think about the rabbit ears going through the thing. You know, there was a time in our lives where that was like a struggle.
Right.
Like I couldn't get the thing with the twist and the whole. But after a while, now I can tie my shoes. I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
So you want to get your golf swing to that point where you're swinging correctly, but you're not even thinking about it. And you know, that's always been a bit of a struggle for me because I want to try to get everything almost too perfect instead of letting it go and trusting. And so, you know, maybe that's held me back a little bit as a player. And I try to instill that in my students so that they can free it up and try to keep them encouraged and not have them get too tangled up in the weeds, so to speak, and the minutia. And just, you know, there's that book you guys have right over my shoulder, Atomic Habits. I think that's a really powerful reference for people, because if you can understand the situation enough where, okay, you have, let's say, 10 things you want to improve, and this holds true in the golf swing, I think in many ways in life and in business, there's 10 things you want to get better. But of those 10 things, there's probably one thing that if you just improve that, it would make the other 9 either better or not even necessary to improve.
Right.
And so if you can isolate that one habit, I think that makes a really big impact. And so that's where I've been spending a lot of my teaching focus, is trying to identify those atomic habits and then just tweak those. And I try to tweak them. It sounds a little corny, but I try to tweak them almost with like a medical reference, where you're trying to have a minimal effective dose that's provided. So it's you're trying to put as few ripples on the pond of their mind as you possibly can as a teacher, because you don't want them thinking about all this different stuff. So, and I feel like I could continue to do a lot better job of doing that, but that's been really a focus of late, is trying to really cut through all the minutia and just get to the things that are going to really move the needle for that player. And that's made an impact on my teaching. I think that's helped me lately.
Wow. The reason I asked that is just it's such a metaphor for life. I think a lot of us as business professionals, sales professionals, relationship professionals, we have going out and playing the game. We become paralyzed of playing the game because we're so worried about the X's and O's.
Yeah.
Right? We get so caught up in, well, I don't know exactly how to do it, and I need to know exactly what to say, and I need to know when to say it and when to do it. And, well, what if this happens? Then what do you do here? And it's like we're so focused on an instruction manual that we forget that, you know, it's situational awareness. When you go play the game of golf, you don't practice, you know, most of us don't practice being behind a tree and having to hook it around the deal, right? Or it's impossible to practice every single lie on even one hole. But yet, you know, if we gave an instruction manual, it's like, it's very different. It's very different than being on the range than playing the actual game. And I look at the same way in business of what's the balance of, you know, you obviously have to learn the skills and you have to work on the practice of the game. But then at some point you got to go out and you got to just let it rip, right? And you got to be okay with, you know, you got to be okay with hitting a bad shot, and you got to rebound, and then you got to, you know, you can still scramble, and the game's not over until it's in the hole, right? Like, and I think about that a lot when I play with Rod. Is just, you know, you got to string them together. It's who strings them together the best. It's not who hits it off the tee the best. It's not who putts the best. It's who strings them all together the best. And I think that metaphor is so good about the game of life, because, you know, at the end of the day, when you tee off, the gun goes off. It's like, all right, well, you're here. So it's about playing the game. It's not necessarily about exactly what to say or when to say it and what to do and how to do it. And I just think that's such a good metaphor.
Here's what I've got. I got to go with it.
Right. Here's what I got. Here's what I go with. And you know what? I'm probably not equipped as best as I could be, but I'm here and I'm going to give it 100%.
Yeah. One thing that I try to teach my students is, it sounds a little crazy, but it's fatalism, to where if you can visualize the worst case scenario and you're cool with it, then you're free.
What did you call that?
Some people call it fatalism.
Like I'm going to die, so
well,
that's the ultimate.
I guess that's where they get.
Right, then you work backwards from there.
Yeah, it's like, okay, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen? Okay, I shoot a high score today. Right. Okay, I'm still gonna.
Your girlfriend leaves you because you're no longer a player. Like
yeah, I mean, so if you can visualize the worst case scenario and be cool with it, now you're freed up, baby. You can do whatever you need to do. But if you're not, then you're going to be protecting, and that's when I think bad things happen.
I love that.
Something you said, I think about minimum effective dose. I've heard that in leadership concept too, right? Like you'd rather do just enough to get the outcome, right? And that's something I'm learning too.
I think that's huge. It's like minimal effective dose, and because I think a lot of people, they fall in love with their methodology and they want to just put it on you. They want to put the whole thing on you, and I think sometimes that can be abrasive or even counterproductive. Where if you can have that butterfly effect, where you come in and it's just like one little thing, and all of a sudden it takes the golfer, I'll use golf obviously as a reference, it takes them on a totally different tangent that's way better for them, and it's just that one little thing that can be really powerful.
Miss the stick.
There you go. That's the beauty of it, is because if it's that simple, you're not going to forget it. So now every time I see you now, for the rest of my life, you probably start the conversation with "miss the stick." It's like, it's so easy to, it's so simple.
Right, that was 10 years ago, man.
It's like Inception, man.
There you go.
You're out in the brain.
That's
man.
next level shit right there.
You just got a high level lesson right there.
We back when we were running together early days. One of our mentors said, "Keep it simple, stupid." It's something a lot of people say, and I think of that with what you're saying. It's like they might not process things the same way you do, so it's almost like you're cutting with a scalpel instead of with some big knife. It's like, all right, well, before I go in here and just start wrecking every way you've thought about the golf swing, because man, it just the further I get down this hole, the more I realize that it is a complex movement, man. It's like, I thought it was just, it's simple. It's like, right. I'm like, oh, if I just change this, I'll be good. And then the more I change that and the more I learn this, I'm like, holy shit, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
It
really is. It's like, if you look at, I think gymnastics is a really good way of kind of viewing the golf swing. If you're on like a balance beam and you've got to do a flip and land that on that balance beam, that's not something you can just like start doing as an amateur and okay, now just jump, and when you jump, okay, now twist as you jump, and then try. Right. No, there's a whole process of learning how to do that, and it starts with tumbling, and there's a whole deal, right? And it's like that with the golf swing, because in a sense, when you really think about it, to hit a golf ball straight at your target, it's a little bit of a mini miracle, right? So many things have to happen. And like with the driver, the face of a driver is actually curved. It's a rounded object. And you're hitting another round object at a really high speed. And so to have all that happen and to hit it in the center of the face with the face square, it's not that easy of a task. And to do that over and over, I mean, good luck with that. It's a challenge, right? So it takes a lot of grinding, a lot of repetition, and a lot of attention to detail, because if one thing is off, you're going to have the ball flying offline, which leads to problems. So you're right, it is complex, and that's the beauty of it. It's an opportunity where if you can try to make it simple for somebody to continue to improve, then I think you've got something.
Yeah, the other I'm going to stay on this for a second because I'm fascinated with this because I got your ear, number one. But number two, I'm just thinking about this. It's like you watch all these golfers, the best in the world. They all have different swings, right? Like the movement is all, it's all in the same ballpark. The mechanics, if we broke it down in certain places within the swing, they all get to certain spots. But man, you can look at the way that they swing this club, and it's so different. But the outcome is the same. They're looking for the same outcome, right?
That's right.
And I mean, it's again back to business. I just think like take 3 different sales professionals. They might all have different styles. And how much of a mistake is it for someone to say, you know what, we're all going to be like this one style, right? And then it's not genuine to them. They're trying to force.
Awkward.
They're forcing it, right? Instead of saying, okay, I'm looking for the outcome, right? I want the ball to go straight, and I want it to go into the hole in the proper sequence. How we get there maybe has some flexibility. Talk to me about how you work with so many different swings, and how, is that important? Is that something that you keep mindful?
It's very important, and I try to keep it front of mind. And that's one reason why I like the FlightScope launch monitor, is because any launch monitor, in a sense, it's a little bit of a lie detector. So if you feel like you're changing your swing, I'm working real hard on my elbow position at the top, and I'm doing this with my, trying to spin my hips and all this. But if the numbers of the launch monitor are not changing, are you really changing anything? Like, that's your key performance indicator right there is okay, what are the metrics on the launch monitor? Where are the red flags where you have things that are really out of position, really conflicting with, let's say, what the elite players do? Okay, how do we get these numbers to move in a positive direction? And that's the deal. If I could sit there and tell someone all these different things, but if these numbers aren't moving, I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like everyone's going to have their own individual way of swinging. The history books of golf is pretty much littered with swings that many instructors would just tear apart if they had a chance to work on them. Jim Furyk, case in point. Yeah. I mean, the golf ball loves Jim Furyk's golf swing. I mean, it just loves it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He shot a 58 and a 59, and the swing looks like what they say, like an octopus falling out of a tree. I mean, it's a swing only a mother could love.
I've never heard that.
Right? Don't you call my baby ugly.
That's right. That's right. And I'm sure Jim Furyk couldn't care less, because he knows that the ball likes it. He knows where the club face is. And so I think that honoring everybody's individualism is super important, especially when it relates to athleticism, because as soon as it's almost offensive to their athleticism if you try to do something that they're not capable of doing. And so there's certain tests that you, or I should say assessments that you can put a golfer through just to see, what are the movement patterns that they're even able to do.
Yeah.
And obviously you want to stay within the confines of those positions that they can get to, or those movements, the patterns that they can create. And so in a sense, by doing that, you're freeing them up to just be themselves, which ultimately, if you're not being yourself, it's just not going to work. I don't care what you're doing. It's just not,
right.
If you're in a relationship and you got to be somebody different to be pleased, I mean, is that really going to work long term?
Right.
No. So,
but it also doesn't mean that you're perfect, and you have tons of things you can work on, but there's a framework there, right? So you just knowing where the boundary is.
That's right. Exactly. You got those parameters that are set up for each individual golfer in my situation, and then you try to keep them in those parameters.
See, ladies and gentlemen, this is why you got to go to Dallas.
You got to go to Dallas.
Got to go to
Speaking of Dallas, so I want to back up just a quick second, maybe shift gears just a bit, if you guys are cool with that. So this 15-year-old kid from, Detroit, Michigan, hops in a car, winds up at Shady Oaks in Fort Worth, Texas, walks out at the University of Alabama, decides he's not going to be able to make it, makes the decision to say, I'm going to pursue instruction. Michigan to Dallas. Talk to us about that. What brought you to Dallas? How long you been in Dallas?
Yeah.
And what does that landscape look like? What does it mean to your business? And kind of talk to us now kind of about the macro of what your business has turned into.
Well, I got my start in Dallas because of Hank Haney. He was my mentor and my instructor, because when I was at University of Alabama, I was really struggling with my ball striking, and I always liked Mark O'Mara's golf swing. I thought he had a really great tempo and a nice golf swing. And my instructor back home, Jim Vaughn, he knew Hank Haney. So I decided to book a lesson with Hank when I was at University of Alabama my senior year. And so I booked a 45-minute with Hank at the golf ranch up in McKinney, Texas. And I drove my old beater car.
God, I'm sure this story.
It was literally a 24-hour round trip drive for a 45-minute golf lesson.
Wow.
And but the golf lesson, as soon as he started teaching me, I was like, man, I gotta learn everything this guy knows.
And to stop, Hank Haney at the time is Tiger's.
This is pre-Tiger.
Pre-Tiger.
Yeah,
but what
pre-Tiger.
would come on to be.
Yeah. Eventually, he taught Tiger Woods, and if you look at the statistics, Tiger played his best golf under Hank. You know, the numbers are overwhelming as far as the amount of wins and the percentage of wins. But so wow. That's when I went to work for or to teach to take lessons from Hank. I was really impacted by his instruction. I thought he was super sharp and a great guy. So every 6 months or so, I would drive back for a lesson, and I would continue to work on it. And then when I got my start,
do you mean you drive 24 hours? Take it, or you drive?
Yeah,
take
12 hours, take the lesson, drive 12
and
hours.
Immediately drive and come home.
Sometimes I would crash in some.
The point is, it wasn't a vacation. I mean, you were going in, take a lesson, turn around, come back.
I just couldn't afford. I couldn't afford to hang out.
That's my point, right? It's like we're talking about discipline. My coach is in McKinney, Texas. This is my coach. No one else in your eyes was going to be good enough. This is where I'm going to get my coaching.
Yeah.
And what most people wouldn't do is make that 12-hour drive for a 45-minute touch, only to sleep in your car or grab a flea bag for the night and then turn around and drive 12 hours back. I want to provide that context for the listener because that all feeds into this whole discipline theme that you embody.
Which is the same thing of going to meet Hogan, right? It's almost like, hey, there's the flame. I got to be close to the flame, right?
Yeah. I guess that's one way to phrase it. You know, when you're in the moment and you're a teenager doing that, you're not thinking about that. You're just like, I know where I want to get to, and this is the way I'm going to get there. And so that's what I did, and he and I hit it off really well. And so I started working with you, Rod, up in Michigan at a private club up there, Walnut Creek. You and I were both the assistant pros there, and I would either fly or drive down and take lessons from Hank. And finally, Hank's like, why don't you just come and work for me and be an assistant under me as an instructor? Because I was basically teaching his quote-unquote methodology up in Michigan. And, of course, I jumped at the chance to do that. And then I
left me high and dry, man.
Right,
I remember him coming home going, man, I'm not coming back next season. I'm like,
that's right.
What are you talking about, man? Like,
we got a good thing going.
This is our club. Like,
Yeah.
these people, what are you talking about? I'm out. I'm like, this wasn't the plan, dude.
That's right. Yeah, so I went down and taught for Hank at the ranch up in McKinney, which is no longer there, unfortunately. And I worked 2 years there. Then I got promoted and went down to another of Hank's facilities called City Place, which was a really unique place right in sort of uptown Dallas. 2 years there. And then for 2 years, I opened a place over on Park Lane, which is now people know it as Top Golf. And I worked 2 years there. And during that time, we actually built a golf course in Texarkana. So I became part owner of the Texarkana Golf Ranch, which I still am. And that was kind of a neat experience to drive out there. A lot of funny experiences with Hank driving to Texarkana and building that golf course with him. And that was really a great learning opportunity for me because I didn't have a lot of background in golf course design or architecture or anything like that, and not like I'm any kind of master at it now, but it was just great exposure for me at the time, and just to be able to go on long drives with Hank and pick his brain. He's got so much wisdom and knowledge. It's you always leave better after you leave Hank Haney. So that worked out really well. And then what happened was I started teaching some of the pros at Glen Eagles. And they asked me to come over and be the director of instruction there. And I thought it'd be just a great opportunity for me to spread my wings. And so I went to Glen Eagles Country Club, and I've been there 20 years. It's been a wonderful home, and I'll be there as long as they'll have me. I love it there.
That is a awesome facility, man. I got a chance to
Thank
go
you.
out there. What was it? A couple months ago, maybe. And man, that practice facility is busy.
Yes,
People
it
are
is.
out there working.
Yeah,
like,
we got
they're
a
not,
factory out there. It's great.
They're not warming up. People are out there working.
Grinding.
I think Bryson was out there on the tee.
Yeah,
just
Bryson DChambeau was out there.
absolutely just punishing the ball. And
266 irons.
I'll tell you what, man. But man, just working. Just a cool environment. So let me ask you this. So this is one of the questions I had coming into this podcast. So, obviously you've had a chance to, it seems like Bryson's there almost every day. It seems like he's there all the time. But you've got a chance to, work with a lot of really good players, and even the players that you haven't worked directly with, you've worked with some of the greatest instructors, and you're well knitted into this community. You're rubbing shoulders with the best of the best. What is it that you see that makes the best players great? And what are some of the things that you've taken away from that and applied in your own career?
Great question.
It's really an easy answer, and it's just laser focus. That makes the difference. It's the laser focus. Like if you look at Bryson DChambeau, I think I can speak to this pretty well because I've been exposed to a lot of his speed training lately. Sometimes he'll use my the hitting bay there at Glen Eagles. And so he's been really gracious enough to let me sit in on some of his training, and he really is focused on, he's boiled everything down for simplicity to just basically one number. And we were talking about the FlightScope launch monitor earlier, and so for him, that number is ball speed, and he considers ball speed to be the cheat code of golf. And so it seems to me, and I don't mean to speak for him in any way, it seems to me that he has taken his life and tried to crystallize it down into one number, and it's simply maximizing ball speed. That's it. Now, I'm oversimplifying it a little bit, but I think that's kind of what he's done, and you see that a lot with hyper-successful people, is if you're going to be that successful, you've got to just focus on one thing, and just, it's like the old saying where if you have a little axe and you chop a huge oak tree and you're chopping this thing all over the place, up and down and around, you can be there and hit it 1,000 times and nothing's going to happen. But if you just take that little axe and just hit it in the same exact spot over and over and over, eventually that sucker's coming down. So I think that's one thing, or that's the thing that separates everybody, is everyone, especially today where there's so much distraction, right? It's almost like focus is a superpower.
God, that's so good.
Right? So that's where I think...
especially in the golf game, too. There's so much
out there, And so I think that makes the biggest difference.
Not to get off on who's on the tour, but when you see guys go through struggles, like I remember, like as a very amateur watcher, like watching Rory right now, where he's seemingly, when Bryson won the U.S. Open, he would say really try to work on speed, and it seemed like something was a little bit off over the next call it year or two, whatever it may be. But it's crazy to see the best in the world maybe lose a little bit of a focus, or where it's not as simplified, to where even when they're the best in the world, losing that focus can lead to not getting the outcomes that they once did or certainly desire. So I don't think it seems like it's hey, I've arrived and I'm this laser focused human being. I think it's a skill and something it seems like you got to constantly hone to stay focused.
No doubt, I would agree.
You speak of Bryson. So I have two questions, but I'm going to ask one after the other. The first question is, and I'm interested to know these answers because like I said, I've had a pretty front row seat to your career, and I don't think I would guess these answers. Who is your favorite player on the PGA Tour or in the world, European Tour, whatever, and why?
I can't say I really have a favorite player on the PGA Tour. I just...
Anybody that you'd love to work with, for whatever reason. Maybe that's a better question.
Yeah, I don't think I have a specific answer. They're all so talented and so incredible in their own way. It'd be a thrill to help any of them. And the ones that I have helped that have played at that level, you get so much more from them than they are getting from you. even though they might not say that. Like the time that I spent with Craig Perks, I mean, his golf IQ was off the charts, and it was just so obvious why he had, won the Players Championship and it was so good. But even the best players, you can just tell they all have something unique, something special about them that puts them over the top. So often these super high achievers, they're really they're just good at everything, but then there's one thing that they're really stand out at. And so that's one of the things I think, like with golf, you can't really be bad at anything and be a champion golfer. You have to be good at everything, and then you have to have one or two parameters that you're exceptional at. So case in point would be like a Luke Donald. He's, ball striking, obviously not the best, but he's good enough. He was good. I'm speaking when he was number one in the world. He was good enough, tee to green, where he didn't hurt himself too bad. But you get him around the greens, and it is just stupid how good this guy was, right? Or it still is, around the greens. He was a maestro. His tolerance was so tight, and his conversion rates and his putt, I mean, it was just incredible. And so you see that a lot, where if you look at the vast majority of their metrics on the PGA Tour, and everyone's just about ordinary. But they had the guys that are successful, they've got one or two where, strokes gained driving, they're like way better than everybody else. Well, there you go. That's the difference that makes the difference. So I think it's, even though you want to be singularly focused, you still got to be pretty good at the rest of it, right? If you want to compete.
And that's great.
So Kool-Aid, my second question is, what is in your 25 plus year career, 30-year career now of instruction at a high level, what's your most favorite memory of your teaching journey?
My favorite memory of my teaching journey, that's an easy one. I have taught a boy by the name of Tanner Kesterson, who's a young man now. I've taught him since he was real little. I wouldn't say first swings, but just about first swings.
Wow.
And he was playing some high-level junior golf and got into some AJGA events. And at the time, the FootJoy, AJGA FootJoy, the winner received an exemption into the Wyndham Championship, PGA Tour event. And so he went out, and he was really playing well at the time, and he won the FootJoy. So he earned an exemption into the PGA Tour event, the Wyndham Championship, at Sedgefield over in Greensboro, North Carolina. And it was funny because, obviously it was incredibly thrilling for him to win, and 16 years old, gets to play with his idols on the PGA Tour. And his dad was so excited. He and his father are super close, and his dad is an incredible guy, Tom Kesterson. And his dad was really excited because he could, caddy for his son in a PGA Tour event, walk arm in arm, down the fairway, kind of, as a team at a very special time and place. And his dad said, or his Tanner said to his dad, Steve's caddying for me, sorry. So I caddied for him at the Wyndham. And after the Wyndham Championship, we sat down, and it was just he and his father and myself, and we were in the grill up at Sedgefield, and we sat down and like had just a total sigh of relief, and just, it was like a moment of silence almost. We just had gone through something that I thought was pretty special, to play in a PGA Tour event. It was funny because he played really well, didn't quite make the cut, but I think just seeing that take place, from where he started and then to qualify for that PGA Tour event.
He's now still playing well. He's still chasing the tour.
Still chasing it, playing really well, and we have really high hopes for him because he's got so much.
Yeah, I know
so
he's
much
a stud.
talent.
I look at your content. He's an absolute stud. He can pound it.
He's an incredible guy too. Everyone loves being around him, and he's as good a person as he is a golfer. So it's been a special relationship for us.
So I think one other thing to point out. I don't mean to hog the questions here, guys. But one thing too, Steve, that I think is important to point out is your teaching identity is now not just Dallas, right? Talk to us about that a little bit.
Well, obviously, Glen Eagles is my home base, and Dallas is my home. But I do teach up in Detroit, Michigan. Every month I go up to Detroit and teach 3, 4, 5, 6 days a month. And I've got a nice clientele up there, a lot of great students. Golf up in Michigan is it's insane. I mean, they're golf crazy up there. So it's so much fun going up there. And there really is an embarrassment of riches as it relates to the amount of great golf courses up there. And a couple years ago, I joined Oakland Hills, and so I'm able to, when I go up there to play, a world-class venue with an incredible membership, and it's just so much fun. It's like adult Candyland. I mean, I literally have to like pinch myself every time I drive in, because it's a really special place. And I just enjoy going up there. I get a chance to see my parents and my friends from high school and hang out a little bit. And
I think it's neat how your journey has kind of come full circle, right? It's like I'm this kid from small town Detroit, and I'm going to pursue this dream, and I'm going to make it happen, and I'm going to do it on a big scale, which you have done and are doing, and takes you to Dallas. And then for the last decade or so, you've circled back to Michigan, and you've made a mark there, kind of where you grew up and where you grew your love for the game. So that's cool. I think that's cool for the listener too to understand. So
that's been fun.
Well, so I had one more question, and then I would love to give the audience kind of where they can find you and all your contact. I know you're on the socials. I get to see pure golf swings every day on my feed. It's just fire.
Did you see that one he posted yesterday?
Yeah,
he posted. That guy was.
Dude, he posted.
Dude's got a good movement, man. For the listeners at home, that was Mr. Rod Earp on, I think, the number 2 all over GBC. So, but you talked about that focus. So, obviously you've learned so much in your career. You say you're just warming up. Taking what you've learned from the greats, from your own experience, where is that focus in this part of your journey right now?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, and it's one that I'm in the process of answering. I feel really good about where I'm at as far as my position at Glen Eagles and what I'm doing up in Michigan, and then I also help some individuals. I fly to different locales and help some students of mine. So it's not like I have a lot of motivation to change what I'm doing, but it's more like the way that I'm doing it. I want to continue to. I find it similar to the old show, like Name That Tune. It's like if it used to take me 5 notes to get the song right, I want to be able to do it in 4 and then 3, and so being able to just sort of pinpoint how I can improve my students and make that more efficient, a little more frictionless for them. I think that's really important, because there's so much friction in life. If my teaching can be a little less, have a little less friction, where the student can go from where they are to where they want to be with a little less pain, that's the key. So that's really what I'm focused on is just honing my craft, being enough of a craftsman to be able to do that so efficiently that it's like, wow, that I can't believe just that little change made such a difference. That's like the goal, and it's hard to do.
Yeah, less ripple. Totally. Well, man, so Steve, thank you so much for being on the show.
It was a pleasure, guys. I really enjoyed sharing some time with you guys.
So good. We've talked about this for a while, and the fact that we get to do this in person is just an absolute treat, and I'm sure these conversations will continue, and thanks for letting us kind of turn on the camera and share it with the world. So
I have a website, StephenAumock.com, that they could go to. I'm also fairly active on Instagram. I enjoy putting posts up on Instagram, so you can find me at Stephen Aumock on Instagram. And then I'm at Glen Eagles Country Club in Plano, Texas. If you're ever in the area, swing by and say hello.
Got to go to Dallas.
You got to go to Dallas.
I mean, and now the listener, they learn that it's just a car ride. It's an hour less than it's a car ride home, man. I mean, or a flight now. Yeah, easy in, easy out.
Hey, some can. Some can't, man. So kind of is what it is.
Love it.
Well, man, thank you so much for being on the show, Mr. Steve Aumock. You guys are amazing. Thank you for tuning in, as always. Life is meant to be extraordinary. Have an amazing week, guys. Thanks so much.